want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Hey.
That's right.
You know what time it is.
Hey, I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
We sit around and have these conversations all the time.
Yeah, because we're real men. That's what we do.
I mean, we sit around, we literally have these conversations. We have these conversations on the golf course. We have these conversations when we sitting down just having some food, you know, in the clubhouse or whatever. We have these conversations all the time. But today we are having a conversation for you.
Yes, it's for you.
It is for you.
So this is actually an interesting coincidence how this happened. We remember we did the episode before, Aging Gracefully.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know you took that one personally, but it wasn't about you.
Yeah,
Wait, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Actually, it was.
Yeah.
But I had another friend of mine thought that misread it and thought it said arguing gracefully. And I was like, that sounds like a great topic.
Bling.
Because, you know, relationships are all about communication. And there's going to be some stress. There's going to be some arguments. Mm-hmm. So what if we could do it gracefully?
There's got to be a tie-in. And we got a real one in the studio today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't always have guests in. Matter of fact, it's pretty rare that we have guests in. But when there's somebody here that we know locally that is like the one for the job, you know, like when you put the signal up in the air, like the person that responds to that signal, when we know somebody like that, we got to bring him in.
Oh, yeah.
We got to bring him in.
Oh, yeah.
When you know, we a couple public school dudes, you know what I'm saying? You know, we from the back of the bus crew. You know, the back of the bus where you used to sit on that hump, you know, in the back of the school bus.
Yeah, I went to Department of Defense schools. I mean, come on.
Oh, that's even worse, dude. That's even worse. Anyhow, we got a real one in the house, man. This is my guy. I've known this guy for years, man. It's been years, probably 5 more years. I don't know. It's been a hot minute, man. And this is a real one. This is the real deal guy, man. My guy. I mean, he's actually, a real deal professional. He's like a mental health professional. We're all about mental health on here. He's with the Relationship Institute of the Rockies. He's got office. We'll get into all that, who he is. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Mad Men Mafia, the one and only Mr. Alex Avila. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Kirk. Thank you. It's good to be here with you guys. I just feel like I fit in already, just having that middle initial.
Yeah, exactly.
With my guys.
The AAA, man. He's the AAA, man. He totally is, man. And how long have we known each other? Seriously, what do you think?
It's probably been about 6-7 years.
Yeah, I would think so. Doing the math, I would think so, man. And like I said, you're one of the real deal legit people, man. I've been to your house, you know, man. I've been to your home when you launched this last book, man. This is the latest book. Yeah. I paid for this book, man. I bought this book, and I got one of these at home. You got to autograph this one too for me. But Emotional Safety is the latest book, honoring yourself while creating trust and presence to experience meaningful relationships. He's also authored 40 Forms of Intimacy. I mean, we talking real deal people, man. We talking real deal credentials here, man.
Yeah, we had to bring in the professionals, the real people, because we know y'all only listen about half what we say.
Pretty much.
But we realize
we only listen to half.
I only listen about half what you say half time. But anyway, we bring in the professionals because these are people we're learning from. These are people we get our information from. And so when we say you don't have to listen to us, you can listen to the professionals. This is one of those professionals we're talking about right here.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk about before we get into the topic. Let's talk about your book. I didn't even know he had the other one. So let's talk about emotional safety.
Emotional safety.
Let's talk about what's the gist of it. Let's dig into it.
Yeah, I think as therapists, we know what emotional safety is, right? We have to provide that for people to talk, people to share. So I just had to break that down for people. I thought we all need to know about this. Why do we share with some people? Why can't we share with other people? And what gets in the way? So I just started paying attention to that, and a lot of things were coming around to trauma that we've had, and we can't talk with certain people. We all know those people we can't share things with because they're gonna tell somebody else, or they're gonna judge us, right? Or they're gonna criticize us. And so the book is all about helping us understand safe people that are doing unsafe things, and how do we see that? How do we respond to that? There's a lot of practical things in there that help people just say certain things and put these protective boundaries around so they can be good.
No, that's something we've been discussing quite a bit, is boundaries on both sides. So if there were just a couple, say, like, if you're just breaking it down to the Cliff Notes kind of version, like, will be like a couple, 2 or 3 things that like people need to know when it comes to boundaries, especially when it comes to emotional safety. Because I think one of the things we've talked about before is how a lot of times people, because of their trauma, don't know how to connect intimately or emotionally, and that's why relationships are such a struggle now, because we're all uneducated with our own trauma.
Right. Yeah. We didn't get this training growing up. Right?
No.
Nobody taught us. Like, this should be a middle school class on relationships and intimacy, what it really means. And so I think setting boundaries is sometimes just knowing ourselves and what we're okay with, what we're not okay with. But how do we articulate that, especially to people that are in our family? Sometimes with friends, people that we are getting to know, we can just end the relationship, right? We're not a good fit. I don't like what that person did. But when you're with family or a spouse, kids, like, you can't just get up and walk away. So just helping you understand yourself, how to value yourself. That's why the subtitle, it's honoring yourself, being able to create presence. So I really think when people are present with each other, present with yourself first, you're gonna know yourself, and then you're gonna be able to create boundaries around what you know and not let in some of these things that are unhealthy.
Hey, so I'm hoping, if it's okay with you, now I know you work with men and women. You work with, young folks, you work with teens and older folks, sometimes people as old as Jason.
Easy.
But
I'm right here. I can hear you.
But I'm hoping that today, if it's okay with you, can we speak to men? Speak to maybe even for and about some men. Can we put this in a man perspective, a man context? Is that okay?
Yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah. Right? Because I mean, just as you said, what you just said, man, I'm just thinking, men, first of all, the whole idea of emotional safety is huge from a guy perspective, because we're not good at finding good, healthy friends. And I think a lot of us don't have a circle of people that we are able to connect with, because we don't know the whole concept of emotional safety and how to open up to people and all those kind of things in terms of within men. But then secondarily to that, with women as well, with the women in our lives, how do I open up with a woman? She says she wants me to be open. She wants me to be vulnerable. But as soon as I show emotion, then I'm judged for either being too soft or too angry or whatever it is. So from a man perspective, I mean, I think we need to be better at emotional safety and finding that with each other, but then also finding that in the context of a relationship with a woman in our life.
Definitely. Yeah. Just being able to experience emotions, right? As a man, and we're told not to. And, maybe our fathers, grandfathers, or culture all have told us not to cry, right? Not to show fear. And fear is one of the primary emotions that we have. And that sometimes shows up with rejection, right? Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, and just fear of abandonment, all these different fears that we might have experienced in our childhood or just throughout our lives. But that's unbearable at times. If we have any hesitation about something, it's because we don't feel safe with someone, and it could be because of some old stuff coming up, but we don't usually have a place to talk about that as men.
And I think this is one of those where you need to share. Like, if you're watching this right now, if you're listening to this, like, you need to share. You need to go online and share this stream, this video, this podcast, this whatever it is, this topic with other men. Like, you need to hit share. You need to tag another guy in the comments, because this is huge for men. So anyhow, I just want to throw that in there. Go ahead, JBK. I knew you were about to say something.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, like, growing up the way I did in the Southern military family and stuff like that, emotional intimacy was, I don't even think it was aware, anybody in my family was aware of it. They use shame as a parenting tool. And so even when I was running men's groups, and a lot of men's groups that we've been through, a lot of times this toxic shame and a lot is a huge thing, because we don't know how to express what we're feeling as men. And that adds to the toxic shame, because that toxic shame, I know for myself and for a lot of guys I've worked with, is if they really got to know me, they wouldn't like me, which is basically, I wouldn't be good enough. I'm not worthy. And when we aren't able to and don't know how to in a healthy way express what we're feeling, and we're afraid to express what we're feeling, because as men in this socioeconomic society we're in right now, it's not only frowned upon, but it's really we're told not to do it. And so you get very dismissed if you're like, hey, I'm a man, I have emotions. They're like, suck it up. don't be a, you know what, and that just kind of adds to that layer cake of toxic shame. And I'm sure in your work you deal with a lot of that as well. Can you speak to some of that, what you deal with, and how you can help guys maybe come out of the closet, as it were, if that's not the worst term ever?
Yeah, I mean, we all have those layers, and the negative belief. When we get down to the core negative beliefs, it's often I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. So it's like those things are fed throughout our lives. It shows up in our work performance, academic performance, but certainly our relationships. So there are two things: the feelings and the needs. And if we can't express our feelings, we can't express our needs either. I think sometimes the hardest 3 words for us as men to say is "I need help." It ranks up there with "I am sorry," and a distant third is "I love you." It's even easier to say "I love you," I think, than "I'm sorry." But just saying "I need help" and "I have a need." And one of the things we just learned growing up is we can't count on people. So we get into ourselves and we meet our own need, and I'm going to do it. I can do it better myself. I can do it faster myself. So at the same time, though, we're pushing people away. I've done that many times. Things like I could have used help with moving or doing something. You did.
Why you have to say that?
Oh, boy. You just went there, man. You just went there. Oh, man. Here we go.
I'll let. I'm not even going to talk about it. You go ahead.
I'm sitting here like, ooh, when you talking just now, I'm like, oh man, you are talking.
We just did an episode on this recently.
Yeah. You talking directly to one of us, and it ain't me. I'm just saying you can narrow down whoever it is. Just I need help and asking help with something like moving.
Yeah.
Huge stuff. And so this is, but again, like most of the stuff we talk about, like pretty much everything we talk about on this show, this is stuff that guys don't talk about. And we all think that we're the only one. We all think that we're broken. We think there's something wrong with us because we're this way, but we don't talk about these kind of topics. And therefore we end up living life kind of in the shadows of who and what we could be, what we could experience in this whole thing called life.
Yeah. I mean, just from my own experience. And I mean, the reason when we had the episode of, can you receive as well as you give is because like you said, I got so used to doing it all on my own and not feeling like anybody would be there for me because, latchkey kid growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, and both my parents worked and all these different things. And, they kind of went by the good old Southern mentality of, well, you got food, you got clothes, you got a roof over your head, you're good. So there wasn't any real onus or attention put on, well, how's he feel or what's going on? And of course, we used to get the, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, and, straighten up a fly ride, all these different things. So all these cliche sayings that basically meant don't feel what you're feeling, don't be yourself. And then as a kid, being egocentric, you're like, oh, well, that means I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. And then you just kind of develop this pattern of keeping yourself safe, which, like you said, really self-sabotages and even chance of relationships later on.
Right, but we learn, how to survive growing up. We come out of that, our childhood with, I can't count on people. Right? I think we're all designed to count on people. That's what we want to do. We want to love people. We want to go toward them. But when we realize, man, I got to fend for myself, and I can't share a part of me, a huge part of me, especially the emotional part, with a parent or even extended family or friends or anybody. We just kind of go inward, and we carry that. We stay like that for decades, and then finally realize, oh, I got to share, even with other men, about some fears and things that I've been holding on to.
Man, this is a fantastic setup. Like I said, we need to like and share, but in the meantime, what we need to do is we need to take a break.
Yeah, talking about not sharing. Let's not share for a minute.
Let's take a break. Let's take a quick break. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City, and on the interwebs everywhere. We'll be right back. Boom. That's a good little set. And we'll go quiet so she'll know when to hit it on the thing. But man, that was a great setup, man. But yeah, when you get that, this dude, man,
he's reading our minds.
Dude, I'm telling you, man.
The thing about moving, that what just came up.
Dude, that dude, man. I'm like, man, you could have.
It was such a thing. He did a whole episode about it.
Man, this dude, he basically moved all by himself, and I wasn't doing nothing that day. I came there. It was just like, a mattress and a couch or something like that. But it wasn't much. I'm like, dude,
well,
I wasn't doing
to
nothing.
give the full story, we were at the show and I asked him like, hey, would you be down to help me out? And of course he was like, you get one a year. I already helped you out this calendar year. So in my mind, I'm like, I know he's joking, but he's half serious. So I'm only going to ask for help with what I really need help with.
Right.
Which was my, like, I want to save my friendship. So I'm not going to overstress my friends. And then after the fact, after I got done moving, he's like, man, you knucklehead, you should. I'm like, oh, now you tell me. After it's all moved.
Yeah, that moving thing was but we do that. Yeah, all right. And we're back. We're back. That's right. We're back. That's right.
We're back.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. Man, we up here. We doing our thing, man. Spring is in effect. We doing our spring thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm digging the Hawaii look. Everything's green right now. So y'all enjoy it while it lasts because the sun's gonna come out and dry it all up soon enough. So enjoy the rain while it lasts. Speaking of enjoying the rain while it lasts, we got Mr. Alex Avila in the house today, and he's a professional. Not only is he a professional speaker, author, and counselor, but he's a professional friend to us.
That's right.
He is one that we lean on to get a lot of this information that we give to you guys that we're expressing. So, you don't have to trust us. Just try the information out.
Hey, your middle initial A must stand for alphabet because you got so many initials behind your name, man. Like seriously, dude. I mean, you got all kinds of initials back there, man. You done got certified and everything for real. If there's some initials to be had, this guy's got it. So he knows his stuff, man.
MA, LPC, CSAT, SSC, or CST. I can't even.
Dude, I went to public school, man. I half of that stuff flips around backwards for me, man. You know, I'm reading and whatever. But so this is good stuff, man. This is great topic in terms of emotional safety. How do we do it? And we're gonna, you stick with us here for a few minutes, and we'll get into some of the practicalities of the how. Right now, we're setting up the whole concept and the reality of we're leveling the playing field in terms of, guys, we're not alone in the nature of us, especially these days, thinking that, man, I can't ask for help. And I think maybe this is why, some guys end up self-canceling, because we feel like we can't ask for help. I feel like maybe that's why some relationships fail, because we feel like we can't reach out to other guys. I need some help. Why we don't, go to the doctor the way we should. Why we don't go to therapists and counselors the way we should. Why we don't go to a lot of places that we should. Maybe some of us should be in a church somewhere because because we say, no, I don't need no help. I mean, I don't want to, we should be talking with others. We should be in men's support groups, all this other kind of stuff, telling the fact that we need help, man. And this is urgently important for us as men today, because we can't do it alone. Navy SEALs don't go into battle alone, and we shouldn't go into every day of our lives alone.
Yeah, and we, wanted to do this episode of Arguing Gracefully, and I know most of you guys like that they're not even talking about what they said they were going to talk about, but we are actually, because I guarantee you, if you as a man are uncomfortable sharing your emotions, your arguments are not going to be graceful, much less productive. And that's why I want to bring Alex in, because this is what he does. He helps people to learn how to express their emotions. He helps them to learn how to accept the fact that I'm a man and I have emotions, and you know what, that's okay. Doesn't make me less than, and doesn't make me worthless or whatever. I'm just a human being. But on the context of emotional safety when it comes to relationships and having conflict, how big of a thing is that?
Yeah, we need safety. That's what shuts us down. Right? And if we can't identify what we're feeling, I always think if we identify, experience, allow ourselves to experience, and then share our feelings, that's the package, right? Then we can communicate clearly, and we're not going to start any unnecessary conflict. We might even be able to soothe some of the conflict or the pain that we caused in the conflict, but it's really important. We have to have safety. If we don't, we only share to the degree we feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to go deep with anybody that is going to look at me funny, or it's too vulnerable. It's too scary.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Emotional safety is necessary to have trust. Trust is necessary to have intimacy. And all of those are necessary to have the connection that it takes to argue gracefully in terms of when I'm in conflict, especially when I'm in conflict with a loved one, with somebody that's really close to me. If I don't trust you, if I don't feel safe with you and all those other kind of things, that's going to impact, that's going to inform how I handle conflict between us, right?
I think I just need to get up and walk out of here. Dude, you just summed it all up. I should have consulted.
You should have, man. You should have, man. Come on, man.
You got it right in the right order.
Yeah.
That's the order. We need safety before we could have trust, before we could have intimacy. And we're only going to share if we feel that continued safety, because that allows us to go a little bit deeper and be more vulnerable and share the deep stuff. That's where the deeper intimacy is.
Yeah, that's one of the things we keep just harping on to the guys. Like, you've got to get to a comfortable place with your emotions and a place where you can express it. And one of the things I learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza is, a memory without the emotional charge is wisdom. But you don't get the wisdom until, like you said, you acknowledge it, you go through it, and then you express it to somebody else. And I think what we end up doing, why we don't argue very gracefully, why we have struggled in so many relationships, is because we don't know how to articulate our feelings. So we just project it, like, you made me feel such and such, versus I'm feeling this way and I wanted to say what I'm feeling right now. And I see so many poor relationships where people are just, all they're doing all day long is you made me versus I feel X, Y, and Z.
And saying I feel, that's taking ownership. Anytime we take ownership, then somebody else doesn't have to spend energy to try to convince us to take ownership. And I think if you put that on a dating app or profile or whatever, like ownership or personal responsibility, if that's like the highest, that's probably the most attractive thing in someone, right? You're taking ownership. You know who you are. You know how you're impacting me. There's a lot to that.
And I think there's maybe a fine line these days. And, there's a lot of talk about the masculine and the feminine, and, the feminine is the feeling and the masculine is the thinking and perceiving and those sorts of things. And so, maybe there's some conflict. It's just even in the way we talk and deal with that in our culture in terms of two men. Like, on one hand, we're saying it's important to say I feel and to own that. But at the same time, does saying I feel make you less masculine? Does it make you, feminine because you can say, like, I feel this or I feel that?
When I started working with men a while back, I started to ask what's happening in you, right? And just because we have to identify what's happening in our bodies too. And that's something that a lot of people haven't learned, right? Nobody's taught us. Where do you feel pain in your body? Rejection, probably in the stomach. Where do you feel tension in your chest? And sometimes knowing where these things show up in your body will tell you what you're feeling. If you can't put a word to an emotion, pay attention to what you're feeling in your body. But instead of saying I feel, because we don't usually say that, it's what's happening in me right now. What am I experiencing? So you can ask a friend that, hey, what's going on with you right now? There's something going on, or what are you experiencing right now? Instead of like, hey, what are you feeling, man? But it is good to get to that place where we can just say, hey, I'm feeling this. And to get that support we need, that could be life changing. And as soon as you take steps, have some experience in that, it's going to be easier to do that with other people. And I have guys in my men's groups every week, and I see that as a training ground. They're building intimacy, they're sharing deep fears and pains and some of the things that they've never shared with anybody. And they're supporting each other and providing safety for each other. And then they go home and they're able to do that with their kids, the spouse, other men outside of the group.
So what would be some tips for a guy listening to this right now who's like, I'm like you. I don't even know I have feelings, or I don't know what this experience is I'm having in my body. I don't even know how to quantify or talk about it. What would be some tips that you would have? Join a men's group, or what? How does somebody who doesn't have that emotional education get it, basically?
Yeah, I would say a lot of times we're just taught mad, sad, glad, right? So if we can expand our emotional vocabulary to start with, and we could just look some of that up online. There are plenty of feelings charts. There's one of the best ones I think that I use in my work is called the feelings wheel. So if you go up and look that up and just find another feeling, and like, oh yeah, I feel there's a wheel. So I feel anger, but what else? And always to ask what else, because there's always something underneath anger. If I'm feeling anxious, what else is going on? And as soon as we have that vocabulary, then we can find one safe, trusted person and start to talk like that. Maybe we have to be very intentional about that and find someone like, hey, I'm just gonna. Are we able to go a little deeper? Can I share something with you? I've struggled. I had a tough time. And just helping somebody prepare to be safe for us is a big part of this. Just telling them something's coming here. Can I share this with you? This is hard. It could be a great first step.
Is feeling weakness? Like, to feel something, is that weakness?
I think that's the biggest strength. and we're taught that it's weak, especially fear, right? And shame and anything that stops us. If it stops us from performing, it's a weakness. That's what we think. But to be able to share that, as we're struggling and say like, man, I'm afraid. It's one of the hardest things to say. Yeah, I'm scared, especially I think to a spouse, someone that is supposed to look to you to be strong and to hold them up and support them and protect them. And we're saying I'm scared. It's a very vulnerable thing. We have to look at anything that gets in the way of sharing and talk about that.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is underrated or not talked about enough is that there is no courage without fear. There is no actually being this courageous man without acknowledging that you have fear. No soldier, no SEAL or whoever, out there in the war zone is out there fearless. The only people who are fearless are usually sociopaths or people who have some sort of disorder so they don't experience that. But for everybody else, we experience fear, and to continually go, oh well, I will not as a man express that because that makes me look small. Mm-hmm. But I mean, expressing fear and then doing it anyway, I think, like you said, maybe not expressing the fears was holding you back from doing the things that you need to do. That's more antithetical to your actions than actually saying, oh, I'm afraid and I'm still going.
Right. There's personal growth on the other side and there's relational growth on the other side. Right. And it is sometimes, despite the fear, that courage that helps us get there.
Have you noticed over the years and all your experience with people and again, since we're talking about men, directly or indirectly, whether it be individually with groups or individually and or with groups, but have you noticed any kind of pattern anecdotally as to why we as men get to the point where we have these perceptions about feelings and about sharing and about emotional safety and all these other kind of things? Any common factors?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just goes back to childhood. A lot of it is trauma. It's, again, of course, the culture, but somebody somewhere told us we can't or shouldn't. They didn't make it safe for us, so we stopped sharing. And I think even as a toddler, we look at people and look at their facial expressions, and we know immediately, if we can feel safe with someone or not. So we just learned that, and we support that story, that narrative throughout our lives. And, we're looking for evidence to support what we believe and know and feel comfortable in. And fear is not comfortable. We're usually taught to avoid that. So there's healthy avoidance of certain fears. But I think when we look at and embrace fear and see what it does for us, anxiety serves a purpose. Fear keeps us safe. We just have to know when we can experience that and when someone else brings up something to us that brings up a fear in us, and we might have to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I learned in Course in Miracles was that you're never upset for the reasons you think. And without, I think, to your point, not having a vocabulary or being able to say, hey, I feel such and such, and then digging into that, you guys argue about the dishes or the trash not being taken out, but that's not what you're really upset about.
Exactly. There's always something underneath. I always think of the emotional iceberg. Everything above the surface is what we see, the anger, anxiety, the sadness, and underneath are those big feelings, the fear, the shame. And then I always think of the water line, right? The water line is the because line. So if I'm angry because of what, what is under there? And there might be a few things that we've been holding on to for a long time, and they keep getting activated. We don't outgrow some of that stuff. We just have to know what it is and know how to cope and communicate it.
I'll tell you what we should communicate.
We taking a break?
Let's communicate a break.
All right.
What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right.
Mad Men and Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We're going to be taking a break. We'll be right back.
Good stuff, man.
Goodness gracious.
You guys are bringing it right up to the argument gracefully. You guys got set up like you were planning.
We were just blessed that way, or
funny. It's so funny because we never ever plan anything. We never ever say what are we going to talk about. We're going to go from here to here. But man, at this point, we've learned to just trust the moment.
It goes pretty organically, and it's always interesting because there's been times where we think we're going completely off script, and then you go back and watch and go, oh no, that was right on. It just works.
I know, and I've typed up at least the tools part of it, and sometimes I'm trying to remember what it was. I'll hit those when I do, but sometimes it's just better to be
no doubt, man. Yeah. And obviously, this does not have to be the last time you're here. I mean, we hope it's not, as a matter of fact. I mean, man, there's so many daggone things we could talk about, man. There's so many things we can unpack, and we need to, because guys don't unpack this kind of stuff. And guys don't talk about this kind of stuff, man.
Right.
Double check your phones and stuff. I keep hearing an echo somewhere. I checked my volume and had to turn it down.
Mine's always down.
Could just be me. I'm just having one of those moments that's echoing in my skull.
That's that other voice talking.
That's right. Whenever you're ready, sir.
All right, here we go. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM, Mile High City. You know what I'm saying? We got our Mile High City Denver Nuggets basketball team in the Western Conference Finals. About to move on to the finals. We're about to bring home this championship. Have another parade in here. That's how we roll, because we're a city of champions, man.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of champions, oh my God, we got the big dude in town.
You know what I'm saying?
We brought him in the studio because we're like, look, man, you can't have that big brain with all that wisdom and all that stuff in there and not share it with people.
The world needs it.
We needs it.
The world needs it, man.
So we kidnapped a man. We made him come in the studio. We're talking with Mr. Alex Avila, and we're talking really. Yeah. We're making our way towards arguing gracefully. How we as men in relationships can learn to argue gracefully with our women. All right, ready, set, go.
But wait a minute. Can I have a therapy session here?
Yes, yeah, go for it. We're getting free therapy. That's why we brought him in. We wanted free
therapy. That's pretty much why you're here. By the way, don't bill us. Actually, this is something I shared with him a couple weeks ago. So, you know, I just proposed, and she said yes. I don't know why people are surprised she said yes, but whatever. I realized leading up to it that I had some kind of hesitation. And it took me a while to unpack the fact that my hesitation was fear. And we've been talking a whole lot about fear. My hesitation was fear of my bad choices in the past, in terms of bad choices of mates, bad choices of personal decisions and actions and behavior and addictions and all these other kind of things. So my fear was wrapped up in that. And once I realized that it was fear, then that actually helped me rationalize the whole thing. And I also rationalized it. It made sense that with her and I, especially, speaking specifically of arguing gracefully, anytime we do have conflict, we end up coming out of it better. And so when I realized all these things and started to connect these dots, I realized that, man, how we handle conflict, and if you want to call it arguing, whatever, how we handle that conflict makes a huge difference. And now kind of to the point where I don't want to say we look forward to conflict, but we're not afraid of it, because, you know, that's just how we roll. We work it out, and we're both humble. We both, you know, kind of come at things like taking ownership and all those other kind of things. And so from a relational perspective, is it important for a man to be able to find just the safety in a woman? In other words, maybe even secondhand to women, is it important for women to be safe with a man so that they can experience a deeper level of relationship with that man than they would otherwise?
Wow, definitely. And with that fear, that question sometimes is what if, right? And that what if, and that takes us back, right? Like you said, all these things I've done, and sometimes it's what if of the future, and it's what if she says no? She's not going to say no, right? She didn't say no. But in the moment, we don't know. And what if this doesn't go well, or what if I fail? And all those things, that powerful 2-word question, right, could just paralyze us. And fear is paralyzing. So I'm glad you identified that. Anytime I identify it as a fear, and I think if we can be in the present moment, right, part of when we talk about arguing gracefully, it's really being aware of what's happening right here, right now in me, and as best as I can have empathy of what's happening in the other person. So if we're present in that, you know, we're able to make a different decision, and we don't stay in the past, right? Because that could take us back to shame. And if we could say, oh, this person's here right now, what do I know of this person? You know, this person's not judging me. This person has no history of, you know, making me feel this negative way. So I'm okay. I'm okay right now. But those old fears will keep popping up.
That brings up a point. I'm glad you said it, because I got to bring it up. How many men or women or anybody else that gets into relationships are dealing with their partner's past relationships, their partner's past traumas? You know, you get bled on by somebody you didn't cut because they haven't healed their past trauma wounds or haven't worked on, or maybe they're not even aware of it. Like I see a lot of people, especially coming from my background, a lot of folks like, this is just the way life is. And they just generalize things instead of going, well, maybe it's me, or maybe there's something I can do about this. how often do you, especially in your work, deal with somebody and have to help couples like work through their past stuff so they can even be present now with their present partner?
All the time. Yeah. I mean, I have to deal with that too. It's something we all have to deal with. Any significant person in our lives that we've allowed access to us, to our heart, our feelings, our thoughts, we made memories with, they're there in some way. I heard this term early in my counseling about 6 in the bed. When a couple gets
easy there, Alex. Come on, man.
How much does that cost? What are we talking about here?
There.
What's going on?
And wait a minute, only 6? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There we go. See, I'm a line stepper.
Off the rails.
I went too far. Sorry.
There's probably a lot more.
Sorry,
than 6,
man.
actually.
I'm sorry.
So six meaning you get married, and it's just not you and your wife. Right? It's her parents and your parents. So at least you're bringing in those messages, those dynamics, those ways of doing things. And probably one of the most empowering things as an individual and a couple is to say, we don't have to recreate our parents' marriage if it wasn't a good one. I mean, we take off all the good pieces that we like and we build something brand new. But as men, we can lead that process, right? Yeah, I don't want to just be her rescuer and savior and come in and be the only person that takes care of her. I can still let her have friends and do all this, but I can be aware of and sensitive to where she came from and learn a lot about her. I always think we can get a PhD every 5 years in our partner, in our spouse. Like study that person, and you have to do it every 5 years because things change, right?
Wow. So I'm gonna. This is not me bragging, but I think it's more than 6. But seriously, here's the reason. No, I mean this. The reason I think it's more than 6 is because now I think we also have to deal with exes. You talk about parents, but we maybe not in the bed, but in terms of in the relationship, one of the things I fear, if you want to call it that, or have fear of, I use fear in lowercase letters. It's not controlling to this point, but of a controlling woman. I've had in the past, in the yes man phase of life, the nice guy pleaser always ended up with controlling women. And so it's a whole paradigm shift to say, wait a minute, this is not who this person is. This person I'm with now is not a controlling individual. So I think that 6, that 6, again, maybe that's why the more times you get married, the less likely it is for it to be successful, because you bring all of that baggage. You don't unpack that. Most people don't unpack that baggage, and it becomes luggage. And they end up taking it from one relationship to the other, and they just keep adding more stuff in the suitcase. And then the suitcase gets heavier and heavier every relationship.
You're going on trips you don't want to go on.
Exactly.
But that controlling, when that comes up, I think of safety. I think when somebody is trying to be controlling, a lot of it is anxiety. And if someone doesn't create safety for me, I'm going to get it. We all need it. So if somebody's been hurt before, somebody's been betrayed in a previous relationship, even if a parent, let's say the father had an affair or something like that, and a wife is carrying that trauma into a marriage, that's going to affect her. And so if there are any kind of controlling behaviors, any kinds of insecurities about certain things, we can show up and validate that. Just understand the trauma story and validate, until we can't validate anymore.
So, okay, we talked about this, and we kind of gone back and forth on it, but men and stoicism, when we talk about men being the foundation in the rock and being stoic in their relationships, and there's a lot of out in the media nowadays where a lot of young ladies are like, oh, I want him to be emotional. I want him to tell me his feelings and things like that. But then I see a lot of guys who are like, okay, and then they do that. And then at a fundamental level, their relationship changes because she doesn't feel necessarily as safe anymore, or he's not at the rock that she was looking for. What would you say to a guy that is hearing this, or how would they best approach their relationships in that way? Like, is stoicism the right way, or is it just some sort of kind of spectrum of it?
Yeah, I think if it's a personality thing, those are harder to change, right? And I think if we're allowing someone to change us at a core level, that there's going to be a problem. We can only do that for so long because we're going to default back to our design. But I think it always starts with us, right? If we can know us and be secure as an individual first, we're going to show up in that relationship as a rock star, right? We're solid, and we can lead in the way we lead. And we have to learn. We have to learn how to lead. We have to learn how to validate. A lot of things can be learned, But we have to first know us.
So I'm not gonna let you dance around the question. Stoicism, good or bad?
Is there a third option?
No.
Good sometimes, bad sometimes. Like,
Yep, that works.
Yeah. Well, and to piggyback off of that, I've heard other people in the men's space, I'm going to call them more red pill type of people, podcasts and such, people in that area who say, don't ever show emotion or don't ever show any kind of weakness or anything. Like, I mean, if your mother dies, don't ever show any kind of emotion to the woman in your life. Don't ever cry. Don't ever any of that kind of stuff. Like, you suck it up and you deal with it, or you go deal with it, guys. And to me, if I'm with a woman who I cannot show emotion to in the case of a huge loss, like a parent, that's probably not a woman that I want to be with in my life. And so, I think there's probably got to be some kind of fine line between, okay, us being the stability in a relationship, us being the flagpole, all those metaphors, versus us being human in the context of a relationship in terms of the safety aspect.
Definitely. And that's how we model it for our kids. And we change generations by saying we're human. As men, we're human too. We have feelings. And yeah, maybe we're not crying all the time, or, all these things that don't matter to us as much. And that's okay. We don't have to have tears to be sad. We can have an emotional response within. But yeah, if we can't show our deepest feelings with somebody, especially in a romantic relationship, marriage, there's a problem. There's a block there. And there's going to be a certain level of intimacy that we cannot attain, closeness, safety, intimacy that that we could attain if we're able to be ourselves and let our guard down and be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think what has probably been kind of ubiquitous with a lot of those stories is how soon men do that, because you get a lot of girlfriends and you're new in the relationship and you haven't spent the time to build the intimacy, to build the trust, to build that kind of glue. And then you're like, okay, now let me show you, because I think it can be very shocking because it's not something that's advertised that much. It's not something that is normal in society for a man to truly show his, like, what he feels and be emotional. So I know Brene Brown talked about in Men, Women, and Worthiness, where she had the one guy come up and he's like, why don't you study men? She's like, well, I just don't. He's like, well, that's convenient. And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, my wife and daughters would rather see me die on my white horse than ever be emotional. And I think it's part of the training that we're attempting to get through nowadays. But I think, slowing down, taking your time, setting boundaries, and then when there's some trust and emotional safety, then sharing those things. But maybe not. I don't know.
Well, with a select few, right?
Right.
And it doesn't make, so we use the word vulnerable, right? It's not weak. It's and I have in the book, I call it calculating risk. We calculate that. Is this person vulnerable? What kind of response do I anticipate? I need a supportive, loving, accepting response. I don't need ridicule, someone that's going to minimize me or dismiss me or make fun of me because I shared a vulnerable emotion. So we calculate that all the time, who is safe or not. But no, we don't have to, just because we're trying to help people understand you have feelings too. We all do, and you should show them. We're still going to do that with a select few, and we could still be strong. We need to be strong, and we need to be secure in who we are, and we can also share feelings.
Boom. Hey, let's share a break.
Okay.
Mad Men Masculinity, KLDC, will be right back. Boom. Good stuff, man. What if we finish up with a segment of how? What if we just pepper you with how whatever? I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Answer some questions.
Pick your brain. How do we? Somebody's thinking out there, how?
But what do we do, Alex?
Yeah. Boom. All right, let's rock this thing. Is she in there? Is super producer Nikki Nicole in there?
Mm-mm. She ran away. She doesn't like us anymore.
No, she did. All right. Yeah, we're back. You know the deal.
You know who it is.
You know exactly who it is. You best know who it is. That's right. Mad Men of Masculinity. KLDC 1220 AM. Probably on the interwebs everywhere. Everywhere you get a podcast. We're on all that stuff, man.
You can't get away from us.
You can't get away. like a bad penny. Man.
Speaking of can't get away from us, we got Mr. Alex Avila in the house.
Right.
And now we're going to pepper him with some questions. He's going to give us the how-to.
Hey, so how does a man find emotional safety amongst other men?
Got to take a risk. I think we have to ask, we have to preface, we have to tell them, hey, something's coming. And we test that out. We already know who we're close to, who we spend time with, who those guys who keep it on the surface with. And those, so we take a risk with one person and we just share. A lot of times when one guy shares, a lot of guys start to share, right? The next guy, hey, me too. Like I'm struggling with that too. And it just takes one person to get it going.
So basically we've got to be brave and look fear in the face and say, hey, I'm feeling something. And then hope that the other guys are feeling it as well.
And then I'll question what's the worst that's going to happen. And if somebody laughs at you or like, hey man, we're not there yet, that gives us some information. And it's okay if we feel safe with them for the most part, we're not there yet. Right? So I'm hearing there's a yet. There's still time, right?
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with rejection, emotional rejection when we do open up?
I think we have to be honest. Like, hey, and we're going to take some time to think about this and how to say that. But when we come back, like, hey, I took a risk here to share something with you. I thought we were able to talk on that level. I must have been wrong, but that hurt. And just put it out there. And see what happens.
Would you suggest, because it sounds like maybe it was a situational thing, maybe don't do that in a group of boys or out at the bar or golf course or whatever, maybe one-on-one initially?
I would say one-on-one to start, just find one person that you can start with. And timing, sometimes people are surprised and their reaction might be something like, pulling back and like, I don't know what's going on here or what are we doing here? So it could be just that surprise. It could be timing, but talk about that, consider that. It might not be that someone's outright trying to reject you.
So when we're talking about arguing gracefully, we'll kind of get the guys looking towards relationships here. What would be some of the key things? I know we've talked about nonviolent communication and using certain terms, but what would you say from your expertise would be some of the key things that if you wanted to be able to argue gracefully or get through your conflicts gracefully and come out the other side stronger, what would some of those things be?
Yeah, first I'd say the mindset of, if you have to be the winner, then you're going to have a loser. And if it's your wife, you don't want to be sleeping with a loser, right? So you want to both win. So it's that team mentality. And that helps at the end of the day. I mean, a lot of times just before you say something to pause, the pause is wonderful. I mean, slowing down is probably the number one technique I would share with people. Slow down and ask yourself, even in 10 seconds, are the words that are going to come out of my mouth right now going to help or harm? And if you have to ask yourself that, don't say it. Because
so you're saying when you say slow down, you mean like literally just pause in the middle of whatever conflict you're having. You mean literally just pause and don't do anything, don't say anything, just pause and think.
To remind yourself to do that, put a remote control in your pocket for a week and just remember there's a pause button in there. Like that's an option, right? And so it's not just to be quiet and avoid, it's to process and to think and to not react. There's a difference between responding and reacting. Responding is thoughtful, there's a pause, it's considerate, it has some wisdom. And reacting is impulsive. It's inconsiderate, it's attacking.
Yeah, I think responsible is the ability to respond, and when you react, you're just emotionally mirroring whatever's going on. So yeah, I love that because count to 10, and is this helpful? Is she gonna love me afterwards or hate me?
Well, because when I hear reacting, I think of chemical reaction, and when I think of chemical reaction, I think of whatever hormones are going or whatever the neurons are happening in my brain and all that kind of stuff. Am I reacting out of some kind of primal whatever, or am I responding in terms of am I like a catcher? Okay, I caught the pitch. Now, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to toss it back to you after I've caught it. I'm not just going to, like the batter, just swing and fire it back at you kind of thing. So when I hear those two, man, that's huge though, difference between responding and reacting. How does a man find a woman that is safe emotionally?
Gonna have another show on that.
Well, we will,
Come on, man. You know, man.
Cliff notes.
Come on, you got one.
Yeah, I think somebody who could listen to be present for you. So a big thing about emotional safety is emotional presence. So how is your presence? Are you there completely? I remember this in grade school. My third grade teacher, I think, was like, you're here physically, but you're not here mentally. She said it in a much cooler way, but like we have to be present with our whole body, right? Our eyes, everything that we're doing, our attention. We're not multitasking, we're present, especially for those deeper, difficult conversations. So if we're in a discussion, and that's what we have to think about, when does a conversation turn into an argument? When does a discussion turn into a debate? And are we bringing, are we fighting dirty? Are we going to slow down and pause and take a deep breath? Are we bringing in our good tools or our destructive tools?
So yeah, that brings up the point. We'll just segue right into it. What are some of the good tools for having those hard conversations, those deep conversations that will actually strengthen a relationship versus the bad tools that will weaken it?
I'd say eye contact, if you're able to give that. I mean, sometimes it's hard for people, but that really shows respect. It shows that I see you, you're there. And when someone feels seen and validated, they feel cared for. They feel like a priority. They feel respect. In that moment, there's a lot going on in that person. Like, oh, you set everything aside. I had a friend I was sharing one time and just was struggling with something. He let me cry. I was out to lunch with him. He didn't touch his food for 45 minutes. His hot plate of delicious smelling Greek food right in front of him, and he didn't touch his food. And that to me just demonstrated, like, man, this guy knows how to be emotionally present. So nothing else mattered.
And my food got cold that day, by the way.
You are one of those guys.
Yeah. How dangerous is it to bring up a man's past, or to bring up something he said, or to use something he said against him?
It's very dangerous. I always think people bring up things because they haven't been fully resolved. Why do you keep bringing that up? It happened 3 years ago or 10 years ago. And we need to go back and specifically target, the feelings. A lot of times the feelings were not validated. There wasn't a genuine apology. An apology is much more than I'm sorry. Sometimes we have to toss out I'm sorry. Those words have been overused. So it's more about, this is what I did, and this is how it impacted you. And it bothers me.
So, okay, I'm going to switch gears real quick because we're almost at the end of it. But we have lots of ladies who watch the show. They love us because we tell them the truth. Since respect is akin to love for a man, how best can a woman in a relationship show respect to her man?
Listening is loving, and that goes both ways. If a woman is truly listening to her man, and listening for what's underneath, and providing that safe space, that presence where he can share and take the emotional elevator down and share a little, on a deeper level, he's going to feel cared for. He might not say that, he might not ask for that, but you can bet he's feeling that.
Yeah, and don't take it all personally. Whatever he says, don't take it. It's not about you.
Right.
Wow. And now, so from the other perspective, how can a man make a woman feel safe?
Slow down and really be engaged. Like I said, take a break, pause before you say things. But I think how we show up to a conversation is important. So giving that full attention, taking a break from a conversation if it gets too heated is important. But the reassurance that we're coming back to this is more important. So
what does he say when he wants to do that? Like, what are the words that he uses?
And that's important because you don't want to say, you're out of control.
Right.
That's where we go.
You
back
tripping? I'll holler at you tomorrow.
Yeah, that might work for some people. But yeah, the I, right? Those I statements, or we, hey, we are doing that thing. We're spinning our wheels again. We're getting stuck. I think we should take a break, but we have to come back to it and name that time. At least 30 minutes usually, and no more than a day if possible. But process. Think about it. Usually if we take a break, we're going to or a timeout, people call it. We're going to our corners, like a boxing match, right? And I'm going to go think of more reasons why I'm right and you're wrong. And we come back and the fight continues. But if you take a break where you're thinking about your part, what did I do that I shouldn't have done? Or what should I have done and I didn't do? How is that person feeling? Did he eat yet? Did she sleep much? Is she struggling at work? Like, have some empathy and then come back. You're going to be in a different place, even if you don't resolve it. And that's an important thing to remember. When you come back to something, it doesn't mean we have to resolve it right here, right now. And when we validate someone, a validation isn't a stamp of approval. To validate someone doesn't mean I agree with you. Validation means I care enough to keep listening because I value you as a person.
So, okay, that begs the question, because I've had this experience in the past when you have those disagreements and you have that lady where you're like, okay, I'm getting heated, I'm losing my temper, this is not going to go direction that's going to be healthy. What's a good way to like extricate yourself? Because I have had those ladies who are like, where are you going? Don't run away. We're going to fix this right now. And I'm like, I can't fix anything right now.
Yeah, if you're a runner, there's going to be a chaser. If the person knows you're not going to come back because of her history with people taking a break or your history. So reassurance should help that, right? If you could say, hey, and that's a new pattern you start. Hey, we'll come back to this. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm overwhelmed right now. I need to process this a little bit, and then name that time you're going to come back, right? Honor your word. And then she might not chase you, right? She's like, I'm reassured. I know he's coming back. Next time we get heated, we're going to take a break and it'll be okay.
Nice. Alex, I hope you come back.
Yes.
So let me just say, man, you're my friend. You're my brother. Known you for a long time, and I can vouch for you as a guy. I know many people who you have helped. We have a whole lot of overlap in different people we know, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's B-men. I mean, man, you are the real deal, man. There's a whole lot of chumps that we can have on here that can spout it off, man, but I know you and I trust you, man, and I can, for whatever it's worth, vouch for you as a human being, man. You're freaking one of a kind. Emotional safety, honoring yourself while creating trust and trust and presence to experience meaningful relationships. My God, how do people get a hold of you, man?
You can go to alexaavila.com and check that. I do some coaching for guys, still do counseling, still do men's groups, but getting more into coaching and just helping guys work through some of the relational things, some sexual recovery struggles. But yeah, and I appreciate being on here with you guys. You guys are doing some solid work.
Thank you.
You got to come back, bro.
Yeah, we're going to get so many questions and so many and-ins. And, Kirk, we're going to get that, and it goes both ways. So we got to have him back on. So you know how it goes.
This is great stuff, man. We got so much that we could unpack. Oh, yeah. And if people aren't even local here to the Colorado area, some of the work you do can be virtual, right?
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of the coaching, and I do intensives. So people that come from all over the country to do intensives, and I do retreats, workshops for couples as well.
That is awesome.
Oh, man. You the man, man. We appreciate you, man.
Well, you know how we do it here. We're all about emotional safety. We're all here about bringing the truth and dropping them truth bombs.
Emotionally safe.
There you go.
Safe for me. Thank you.
And we love y'all. Make sure you tune in Saturdays at 8 a.m., Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on the interwebs 24/7. We are the Madmen of Masculinity, and we love y'all. Peace.
Madmen out.